Hello, welcome to ActiveLab, Active SUV's podcast. Today we are interviewing Max Romero. He is our Advocate of the Year. We will be celebrating him at the 15th annual Noches of Luminarias, Active SUV's Gala Awards ceremony. Congratulations, Max, for winning the Outstanding Advocate of the Year. You are a prime example of what one person can do to better their community. So thank you for that. And if you can just please tell us a little bit about yourself.
So to start my journey into the transportation world, I really first started taking the bus home from school. And to get back up into Sierra Madre, we didn't really have much bus service. There was only one bus that ran twice in the morning and twice in the afternoon, starting at 3 o'clock and ending service at 4. And that was a problem because if you were anybody who worked a normal schedule, or even a student who didn't live right next to the bus stop, you weren't able to make that last bus, or if you were barely able to make it by maybe a couple minutes. So I realized that there wasn't really an option for people to get up into Sierra Madre, and there was a pretty big demand. A lot of people needed the service, even people who used that one or two buses that ran throughout the day. There were quite a few people that actually used it. So I reached out to Metro, I spoke with some people at the city, gave speeches, wrote articles, and really pushed for something to be done. And after a year or so, we finally restored bus service to the city. We've accrued over 250,000 rides in this past year alone, and it has really become a lifeline for the community.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for that. I believe that I've actually benefited from the changes that you've made. And so on behalf of the SUV, thank you so much. That's wonderful. You said it's 250,000 rides already?
Yep, 250,000.
Wow.
And those 250,000 rides have really provided a way for people to not only get around inside of the city, but also to leave Sierra Madre and go check out the neighboring communities, whether it be here in El Monte, in Pasadena. And really growing up, I was able to experience a lot of that myself because Sierra Madre used to have bus service in the past. Mm-hmm. And using that bus, I was able to go around and really explore. I used to go to the farmers market at Pasadena High School every weekend on Saturdays. One of my favorite restaurants, The Hat, over on Lake Avenue, right by a metro station. Mm-hmm. And really, I tell people, once you're able to get to a bus stop, you can really get anywhere.
Right, yeah. Once you learn how to use public transportation, it's like a whole new world. Thank you for that. Can you also tell us a little bit about your background? Like, who is Max Romero?
I was born in Pasadena, grew up, spent the first half of my life, so probably about 8 to 10 years in Pasadena, then moved across to Sierra Madre, not too far from where I used to live, and spent my time growing up in the area. So I'm very familiar with the San Gabriel Valley, especially the northern portion of it. I've got a bunch of friends and family who are all in the area, and it's pretty much been my life, the way I've grown up, the people I've experienced, the community that I've really interacted with.
So the first time we met was in November of 2023, I believe. I was leading a transit tour from South Pasadena to Long Beach, teaching folks how to take public transportation to the coast. And you had signed up to join. And my first meeting with you, you actually taught me something about public transportation. I had assumed that the trains were on schedule, and then you showed up and told me that actually the tracks going westbound, if I'm not mistaken, were closed, and so we had to catch the train from the other platform. So in my first meeting with you, you were actually very helpful. And so I'd like to know, what was your first experience helping someone with public transportation, and how did that go for you?
One of the first experiences that I'd say that I've had with people using public transportation is kind of, again, going back to that original 1 or 2 buses that we had a day. And, seeing as you only really have 1 or 2 options to leave in the morning and 1 or 2 options to actually get back home in the afternoon, you really start to get to know the other people who are on the bus. So you kind of develop a community around this one little journey that everybody makes at the end of the day, whether it's 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour. Everybody kind of gathers together and tells how their day went or how they're feeling on a bus, which is kind of unexpected, but it's also very therapeutic at the end of the day. The way that I would say that I was able to help them was I have spoken with a lot of them since, and I haven't seen them as often anymore, but I think that's a very good thing because they've been able to use the bus service that I've brought back, and they've told me numerous times how that's really become part of their daily journey. Instead of only being able to leave Monday through Friday at 7:30 on the dot, they're now able to leave at Saturday at 6 a.m. or on Wednesday at 2:30 in the afternoon. They have more options than they previously had, which I think is really eye-opening for people who kind of are stuck where they're at without other options.
So one of my favorite things about meeting you at the Gold Coastal Transit Tour is that day we were made that have lasted now going on 2 years, not only between us and your dad, but we had a participant who was just randomly walking by and saw a crowd, stopped to ask questions and joined the group. And so now you are really good friends with that person, and I've seen him and your dad at multiple events together. And so I just love that little story of how this all began and how it's progressed, and I personally love being a part of it. And so when I see you guys, it brings a big smile to my face, and I always enjoy when you guys come say hello to me. And so being able to now be here with you and doing this podcast and being able to honor you with all the great work that you've done is just like a complete circle of how great things work out, and how not only the work that Active's doing, but making those relationships with our community members and just working together on this, I guess, this mutual mission that we have, and so I just wanted to know how you feel about that.
I absolutely agree, and what I tell people all the time is they will form unexpected bonds with different community members on transit, and it's something that people don't really think of, but it happens. And having these community events where you bring members from all over the community together to go have some good food in San Clemente or Long Beach or Santa Monica, going and learning about how the coast is affected by climate change or different human ways that we're impacting the environment. I think it's a really great way to bring people together and really bond with the community. And ever since then, it's been going on 2 years now. I have spent numerous occasions going out with this participant, a good friend of mine, and we've tried numerous restaurants around the San Gabriel Valley and around LA County, and that's become our little thing now. It's something that I wasn't expecting before, but now I can't really go a week or two without having tried a new restaurant from my good friend now.
Shout out to Armando.
Shout out Armando.
How has your community responded to your active transportation efforts?
The community has been extremely supportive of the work that I've been able to get done, and even work that they might not know that I'm involved in, I do have a little bit of a say behind the scenes. Things like getting trash cans installed at the Sierra Madre bus station, reinforcing some of the stairs to make sure that they're safe to walk on, getting Memorial Park repainted and redone to make sure it's a little more inviting, things like public restrooms that are easy and accessible to use. And I think a lot of these things really contribute to the whole ability for people to get around their communities. I tell people all the time that if a train gets canceled or a track gets closed, like we were talking about earlier with Go Coastal, if you compare that to driving, for example, let's take the train. If you close one track and trains are only able to go in one direction on one track, that's as if you closed half of an entire freeway. Nobody can travel westbound on the 10.
Mm-hmm.
And you think of how much of an impact that would have on traffic and cars. You can parallel that to the impact that it will have on people and some of the surrounding bus lines, and how maybe if you have to add an extra half hour to your trip, you're going to need to use a restroom, or you might need to go take a seat in the shade, or you might need to throw something away in a trash can. And I think that's what the community really appreciates, that I'm making things like this possible for them.
At the beginning of this year, the San Gabriel Valley experienced the Eaton fires, and I was wondering how that affected you.
So on the first day of the Eaton fires, I remember I was coming home later in the afternoon. I had just gotten off the bus back in Sierra Madre around 7 o'clock in the afternoon, made my way up home, and I hadn't even noticed that the fires had started. And I remember maybe half an hour after I got back home, my parents came in and said, "Hey, there's a fire, we need to evacuate." And I thought, oh, it's just like any other fire that we've experienced being up in the mountains, that we'll just wait it out, we'll be able to stay home. It might smell smoky for a couple days, but we'll be fine. And they kept telling me, no, we really need to go grab a couple of essentials and let's get going. Then I remember walking out the door, turning around, and seeing the fire right behind my house pretty much on the mountains. And we evacuated, luckily, to family further inland. And throughout the whole process, I wanted to make sure that people had quick, reliable information as it was coming out, that it was verifiable. So I made sure that on my Instagram account I was posting to make sure that people had quick, reliable information, that resources were made available, places that people could go to get food, water, shelter, anything that they might need. In addition to things like transit detours, as transit is my area of expertise. And one of the stories that I like to tell people from the fires is that buses did not stop running unless the area was completely destroyed. So the entire time, regardless of what time it was, if buses were still scheduled to run, they were running. So people who I've even spoken with, who didn't have a car, who maybe weren't able to drive, they were able to walk down to a bus stop, catch the bus, and get to safety from the mountains and from the fires.
That's great. We at Active were watching what you were doing online, and we were definitely appreciative of what you were doing, so thank you.
Thank you.
As an 18-year-old, how do you balance school, daily life, and your advocacy projects?
It's definitely a challenge, but I think a lot of it goes down to scheduling and planning. And the way that I've been able to do it is I give myself plenty of time, both when I'm in school and out of school, to get everything done, whether that be getting assignments and studying done ahead of time. That way I have a little bit of extra free time to go to other events and extracurriculars, or spend a little extra time with a friend at a restaurant. Shout out back to Armando again. Especially going into high school, I knew I wanted to give myself a lot of free time. So I made sure to plan my class schedules to have study halls or time for me to actually get work done. And before bus service was implemented, I was waking up at 5 in the morning and walking into nearby Pasadena to catch a bus to school. And that would get me to school around 7 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
School for me would not start until 8:30, which gave me a good hour and a half to actually get work done. So that really gave me enough time and a big opportunity to really get started and get work done when I was beginning my advocacy journey. And now that I've kind of grown into what I do a lot more, it's just kind of flowed naturally at this point.
What advice would you give other young people who want to make a difference in their community?
I'm going to start this off with another little story. So going back to the twice daily roundabout bus that used to serve Sierra Madre, I remember thinking that it wasn't enough, and I wanted them to run the bus service a little more. Even if they gave one more trip at 5 p.m., that would have been enough for me, and I would have said, that's perfect, I'll take it, that's all I need. So I remember walking home one of these days, and I picked up the phone after a week or so, and I'm like, I'm gonna call Pasadena Transit, and I'm gonna ask if we can get one more bus. One more for the day is all that we need. So I called, and I started to say my piece. I said, hey, hello, my name is Max Romero, I live in Sierra Madre, can we get one more bus in the afternoon so that way people can get home? And the person on the other end of the line said, you know, nobody's ever asked that question before. Nobody's ever brought up something like that. And that's when I realized that something, even if it may seem simple, might not be getting addressed, even if you think it might be. And that is when I realized that if you want to get something done, you really have to stand up for yourself, you have to take a position, you have to speak out about it, and you have to get involved. And that's when I realized that it was my time to step up. I wrote an article, I spoke to the city council, we formed the Sierra Madre Public Transportation Subcommittee, restored bus service, provided over 250,000 rides, and that's how we are here today.
Thank you. Congratulations on everything that you've done and accomplished, and that's great advice. What challenges have you faced, and how do you keep going?
There are a couple challenges that I say that I've faced over the years so far. I think, first of all, like we talked about earlier, balancing things like school and friends and life and everything on top of advocacy and government work. But then also actually making sure that things get done. Like I said, getting the 268 to extend into Sierra Madre took a year or so, and there are still improvements that I want to get made, but that's just the way the government works. So we have to make do with what we can, roll with the punches, and take every small win that is available to us.
So looking ahead, what's next for you?
There are a bunch of new projects that I am taking on to hopefully improve accessibility, safety, and the station experience at a lot of metro stations. I've been working on my station improvement plan all across LA County, and I am entering into what I call my second phase, which targets over 20 different metro stations all across LA County with improvements, whether that be to accessibility, safety, cleanliness, seating, anything you could think of. I really went through and wanted to make sure that we can improve the experience for people. And that even includes some of the more basic things, like at some of the major hubs, getting things like water bottle filling stations or public restrooms, trash cans, things that, again, you think are basic and should be there, but are not for one reason or another. So I really think taking a bigger step and more of a holistic look at the system to see what I can get done to make sure that our system is accessible, easy to use, safe, and clean, and works for everybody.
In 2028, the Olympics are coming to Los Angeles. How do you think they will affect the SGV and the communities that you work in?
I think they're going to have an extreme impact, especially in the Pasadena area with the Rose Bowl hosting a number of the Olympic Games. And it's going to have a massive impact on our businesses, on our public transportation sector, on traffic, on pretty much anything you could think of. So I think that really loops into my mission on getting improvements at these metro stations to make sure that they are able to accommodate the increased volume of people, making sure that Our buses are frequent, reliable, clean, inviting, and part of that journey, I've been working really closely with an organization called the Pasadena Complete Streets Coalition, where we recently began a campaign to advocate for a bus-only lane on Colorado Boulevard, one of the main arterials of the Pasadena area, where buses can get as slow as 6 miles an hour throughout the day and is extremely congested. And by implementing this bus-only lane, we would serve the existing 6,000 daily riders that pass throughout the corridor by making their service faster, their commute less time-inducing, and give them more time, whether that be at the games, at a local restaurant, with friends and family, as I often do, or just to be able to get to and through our cities.
That's great. So adding a bus lane, how does that affect the existing layout of Colorado Boulevard?
So Colorado Boulevard is currently one lane in each direction with diagonal street parking throughout most of it. And what we would recommend, at least for this portion of Colorado Boulevard from Pasadena Avenue to Los Robles, would be reverting the diagonal parking to parallel parking, which would actually provide space for a second travel lane in each direction while keeping a lot of the existing parking and providing bus service in that lane, so that way buses don't have to pull in and out of traffic, emergency vehicles can use the bus lanes without any penalties, and of course, if people use those bus lanes, if buses ticket those vehicles, that will provide additional revenue to the city to do things like street repairs, things to support businesses, help out with other initiatives, and overall benefit the community more.
Oh, very cool.
I want to plug that we are collecting signatures on the Pasadena Complete Streets Coalition website to support the bus lane project on Colorado Boulevard from Pasadena Avenue to Los Robles. And you can also go to the website if you want to learn more about the project, see interesting graphics, and get an overview of what the project is really about while learning more and getting more information. And if you support the project, want to see better, faster, more reliable bus service and less congestion on the boulevard, go ahead and sign your name in support.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share today that we haven't covered?
I think it's really, I want to plug transit usage more. I've taken people on public transit who maybe have driven all their lives and have never taken a bus or a train before. And every time I take somebody like that on a transit trip, they always come back and tell me that they've never seen the city in that way. And it's a really eye-opening experience for them to actually be able to go out and look around instead of having to focus on the road, or maybe look at some of the shops or walk around in the area. And it can even be fun rushing to catch a train or a bus if you know you have 2 minutes before it arrives and you're a 5-minute walk away. I think opening your eyes to a different perspective really is inviting.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I love having that experience and seeing the city through a different lens when you're on the bus or the train. I like to tell my friends that my adventure begins as soon as I get on the bus or the train. So I love that. Thank you.
And then I think through my advocacy work too, I've even been able to look at even more lenses. I've worked really closely with Metro's Accessibility Advisory Committee, people who have disabilities, and they've really opened my eyes to how we can incorporate things into our bus and rail system to make sure that somebody in a wheelchair or somebody who's sight impaired are able to use our transportation services effectively and not have to be afraid to get out of their house.
If you had a day to show a friend some of the 626, where would you take them?
First of all, we'd be going by transit, of course. Have to plug my improvements. And we'd probably spend a day eating at some of the local places. Of course, have to show them the Hat, one of my favorite restaurants. Probably eat there for lunch. Go out and explore a little bit, maybe walk around some of the malls that we have in the San Gabriel Valley, one of them being the Outdoor Valley Mall strip nearby. really nice place to go out and walk around. I've done that plenty of times. And probably just get a feel for the community, the environment. There's always something going on in the San Gabriel Valley. I know that for sure. I
True.
can't tell you a weekend that I've spent where I haven't gone to a community event or gone and volunteered somewhere and spent some time with the community.
Thank you for tuning in to ActiveLab, and thank you, Max, for joining us today. It was definitely a pleasure. Please follow us at ActiveSGV on Instagram for more stories and behind the scenes of our Noches de Luminarias on October 23rd, 2025. We also still have tickets available. We would love to see you there. And once again, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And bye, everybody.